I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why does it take him so long to build a stock 383? Well, this is one of the 100 reasons why. How do you like that piston ring? Look at this ski slope. Folks, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is not going to go in a ringland. You can try, but I mean, it's not going to move. So I had to order another set of piston rings, and it'll be 7 days before they get here. This is why it takes so long. If you try to put it in here, it's fine. But if you put it in over here on the ski slope, it's not fine. It's just, what can I say? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It just doesn't work at all. So, put it in over here and it falls out. It's not easy, folks. Generally speaking, you know, you don't check the ring end gap on replacement rings because the spec is so wide. The spec on these is 13 to 52. Well, how's it going to be wrong? I mean, just about anything would land in that range. But strangely, all those, the first 7, they were right down at the low end of the spec. I found that pretty hard to believe. I just assumed they would be big enough where you don't ever have to check them. This one's the same way. Hard to believe, but you know, you're not supposed to have to check them because the range is so wide that there's never going to be a mistake. But inquiring minds want to know. Can you imagine how stupid you'd feel if, you know, you don't want to do that. You'll have to look at the piston ring instructions as far as how the rings go or where they go. Normally there's a mark on the top, either it says top or there's a dot, and that tells you that it's the top. If it doesn't have a mark, then it doesn't matter, but old people, when they look, they won't see the word top and they won't see the dot, so you have to have flashlight, you have to have optivisor. There's no marks on this ring until you get the optivisor and the flashlight, and then you can find them. But some of you don't have to worry about that, but everybody else does. And these rings, they said don't wrap them on. They said use a ring spreader. So we'll make them happy. As long as it doesn't break, we'll be happy. And now the top ring. It says top. That one just had a dot. This one says top. So now we'll oil them up, and then the piston instructions should give you orientation on how they want the gaps placed. Of course, on this stock piston, that points to the front, this little notch here. And then the instructions will give you orientation. It'll want one gap here and one gap here, and the oil rails also. It's supposed to all be in the instructions. So this will be the last one. We'll need a little oil. Notch goes to the front of the engine. Tang goes to the outside, which should be also where the rod is numbered. Although this ring compressor works very well, it's not the easiest thing to do by yourself, but I guess you can get used to it. On this particular compressor, which amazingly works better than my tapereds. The tapereds work better when you're on your own though. But this part goes to the lower where it'll get a good grip on the rings down here. See how it's not pulling from the middle of the band? So it goes down low here. And you have to get that notch pointed straight to the front so the rod will land properly on the crankshaft. So get that notch pointed straight to the front, and then you'll want to tap this down and make sure that it's seated against the block, or that bottom oil rail is going to pop out on you first thing. Everything look good? Nothing to it, right? Now all the rods are in, and so you check the rod side clearance in between the two rods. The book is 9 thousandths to 17 thousandths. And these are nice and tight, but we've got the 9, so that's fine. So that's good. We don't have to, I mean, you shouldn't have a problem. I mean, it's OEM crank, OEM rods, so that worked. Now comes the dreaded rear main seal. I've never had a leaker, but a wise man once said, all that means is you haven't built enough engines. So there's still paranoia every time you have to do this. I'll get my stuff out and we'll kind of go over this and see if we can get it right. I put the rear seal plate on to show you why I don't use side seals. The crank is round, and you want the seal to be round. You want the crank to dictate where the seal rides. You may not believe this, but this is a micrometer. If you measure this, you get 30 thousandths. And if you measure this, you get 20 thousandths. That's why I don't want side seals dictating where the seal rides. It's not right. It can never be right. There's nothing right about that. So I don't use them. I wanted to show you this, and that's why I'm not using side seals. I'm just going to use black silicone, RTV, ultra black, is the product I usually use. I do clock the seal a little bit. Some people don't do that and they have perfect success. That's just the way I do it. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I also don't put any silicone on the inside the retainer here or any RTV in there because I don't think that's right either. If you had a problem, how in the world would you get that seal out of the block if it was black RTV in there? But let's hope we don't have a problem. But the first thing I could say is clean, 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 clean. I don't think you can clean it enough. I use lacquer thinner and a Q-tip on these corners and a paper towel and a little thin blade screwdriver to get in the corner itself. And I think it has to be absolutely perfectly clean. I just want to make sure that the RTV sticks to this and to this. Mainly I'm concerned about this because this thing has been nasty and oily for weeks, and I think it needs to be wiped 20 times to get it right. I'm also going to put some lithium on the crank and on the seal. I already put some on the crank when I put in the lower, but I'll put some more in here also. And then I'm going to put a dot of RTV on the ends there where they meet. And just a dot, nothing big. Main thing is I want a lot here, trying to seal the sides. There is no dirt, oil, grease, whatever coming off of here now. And then I use some lacquer thinner on a Q-tip to get right up here where it's hard to get in with the paper towel. Do that a few times, get it perfectly clean, free of oil. We're in and torqued down and hopefully never leak. We have a complete short block, so now I can continue on. Kuntz in Arkadelphia is doing the heads and they're done, so I should have them in a few days. I've got a Hemi size oil pan. I believe it came off of like a C-body, a bigger car. Hemi size, but no baffles in it. But I don't think that'll be a bad thing for him. This pickup measures about 5 1/8, and this pan is 5 1/4. And it seems to go on without any interference anywhere. And we can still have the pan gasket to go. I actually have a windage tray for it also, but I always think that's going to give me another chance of a oil leak or something. I realize that Mopar says that you get 5 horsepower at 5,500 RPMs, and we all love windage trays, but for this particular person, I'm kind of thinking that less chance of an oil leak might be a better thing for him. I don't think he's going to spend a lot of time at 5,500. You know what I mean? So I might just go that way, but this will all look better when it gets painted. Sure, it looks terrible now, but I think it's all going to work out fine. The oil pump's on and torqued down. The dowel pins are in. The VHT Chrysler Hemi orange engine paint was a total failure, so I've got to start over on that idea. I guess I'm gonna have to use some of that Bill Hirsch that you have to spray out of a gun. I don't know why I'm paranoid about that. I should be able to do it. And everything's going good. I think in another hour or two, I'll be able to find the fuel pump push rod that I put on that table 1 week ago, so I would know where it's at when I needed it.